And one of our favorite all-time friends, Steve Yates, joining us from Taiwan, international man of the world of mystery, former chairman of the state Republican Party, former member of the Bush White House, former candidate for lieutenant governor, former number one champion of Newt Gingrich for president. And I'm sure I've left out numerous things. You can catch him on the Fox Business Network. You can catch him on the Big Fox. And we're blessed to have him here at KIDO Talk Radio. He's been touring the country, touring the world. And I have to say, I thank Ray Amaya because I was beginning to feel a little neglected. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Kevin. It's great to be with you, even if it's from the other side of the planet.
Boy, it's a privilege to have you on here from the other side of the planet, particularly with what happened between North Korea and the president. What's the reaction in Taiwan?
Well, here in a lot of the region, of course, they didn't have the distraction of what was going on Capitol Hill in D.C. They just focused on the drama in Hanoi. And to a degree, there was a lot of buildup to this get-together. So the dinner that took place the night before, there was a lot of buildup on that. And it was a little bit surprising to see the president announce that they were stepping back from the table and leaving without an agreement. I think the hot takes in the media, I think there's a lot of people that just instantly want to say this is a failure. I actually see this as kind of a mature move by someone who's a seasoned negotiator to be able to step back and not take a bad deal, not rush it. There's still a lot of net forward progress that's been made during the president's tenure. There haven't been missile tests. There haven't been nuclear tests. Hostages have been released. And to just keep the conversation going, because it sounds like the leader of North Korea wants all sanctions lifted completely right now. And President Trump has wisely said that's not really in the cards.
Mr. Yates, when we take a look at the difference in diplomacy between the Trump administration and the Obama administration, can you spell that out for us?
Well, on this particular issue, President Obama, over 8 years, really didn't do very much. I mean, President Trump essentially said in his press conference they did nothing. There were some things at the United Nations. Of course, North Korea is one of the most sanctioned geographies on the planet. But they didn't really do much by way of diplomacy. Now, I was in the Bush administration. In the first half of the administration, we had a bit tougher agenda when it came to North Korea. There was an attempt at negotiations, but we didn't really make the concessions. Those came in the second term of the Bush administration. I would give, it might surprise some people to hear, but I'd give the Obama administration credit for at least not doing what happened in the second term of the Bush administration by giving up a lot of concessions in exchange for a deal that ends up being essentially a fraud. That happened in the Clinton administration. It happened in the Bush administration. There was quiet during the Obama years on North Korea, but during that quiet in diplomacy, North Korea tested multiple nuclear devices and multiple missiles, and actually killed some South Koreans on an offshore island. So significant provocation during that period with no measurable response by the United States. So Trump's been quite different. I think that the engagement with the new young leader of North Korea perhaps has frozen some of these things in place. We still have a threat, but it's not as threatening as it had been in the Obama years.
When we take a look at you, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been up to a fair amount of going back and forth to things in D.C. and New York. You mentioned at the top, I have kind of revived a little bit of what I had been doing with Fox News and Fox Business before a lot of my focus went into politics in Idaho. And that's been fun. I was actually supposed to be in New York to talk about this North Korea stuff. But obviously it was a tough commute from this side of the planet. I've been going to Japan and Taiwan a bit because I have some business equities over in this part of the world that it's good to have business again and get back to trying to steer some things back to home in Idaho where I can. But it's an exciting part of the planet. There's some elections coming over here. The vice president's speech that he gave at the Hudson Institute talked about a comprehensive challenge presented by China. And so we've had some conversations with Australians and Japanese and Brits and Canadians and others that are basically in broad agreement with where Vice President Pence was in that talk. And so back in foreign policy and some international business, and then getting back home when I can.
Yeah, the international man of intrigue, Steve Yates, joining us here. Why is Taiwan important to America? A lot of us seem to gloss over Taiwan, Japan, Hong Kong, and of course, I didn't mean to put in Japan, but Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China. This is your area of specialty. You know the Treasure Valley. You know Idaho. Why should we be concerned about what's going on there? It's a little off the radar lately, but it's still very important.
It is. Well, Taiwan is definitely not off the radar for the people who work at Micron. It's where Micron's largest investment in the world is centered. And there are a lot of Idaho farmers who have some significant equities in Idaho. There's about $500 million in grain that is purchased by Taiwan from Idaho. That's a nice little lift to our economy. And there are a number of other things where Taiwan is Idaho's third largest trade partner. China is also an important trade partner, just right behind Taiwan. And so some of what's been going on in the trade negotiations has affected Idaho businesses and Idaho farmers. And so they'll care about that. But we also have a very sizable population of men and women who serve in the military, and China, with the fastest growing nuclear arsenal on the planet, one of the most aggressive territorial claims on the high seas. There's a lot of areas of national security life that are men and women that keep America safe or engaged in that China touches upon. And I just think when I was campaigning around the state, I was actually very favorably impressed with the knowledge of grassroots Idaho voters about what the top challenges were to our way of life. And China, governed by the Communist Party, is the top geostrategic challenge to our country. With due respect to Mr. Romney in 2012, I don't think Russia was the top threat then, and it isn't now. China was then and is now. And so it matters to the future of America, and I think a lot of Idahoans will identify with that.
And finally, just how big a threat is China? They've got the buildup in the South China Sea, and this is your area of expertise for many, many years. They're, hop, skip, and a jump from where you are right now.
Yeah. Well, I would encourage everybody to go back and review that Hudson Institute speech that Vice President Pence gave in October of last year, because there certainly is a significant challenge in the territorial claims in the South China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, and the seas that are between China and Japan. But China's capabilities go far beyond that. They engage in economic coercion, with the theft of intellectual property, the penetration of major corporations. There are key parts of the United States where universities, curriculum, and other operations are controlled, influenced, and sometimes compromised by Chinese Communist Party influence. And so is our media. I mean, there's an insert in the Des Moines Register that it comes right from the Communist Party controlled media. Same in the Washington Post in Washington, D.C. So there are parts of our lives that China is influencing under the direction of the Communist Party that no other power has the access to. And so that, I think, has caused a bit of an awakening, and we're on the front end of how to respond to that. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to work with allies to share best practices and see whether we might, together with the Trump administration, have a positive agenda for how to meet this challenge, and hopefully one day have a China that's led by free people that presumably would present a lesser threat to the American way of life.
Whether you're meeting with the high-level diplomats or hanging out at Chili's here in the Treasure Valley, you're a man of many talents, sir.
I actually enjoyed a Chili's meal here in Taipei, so they're worldwide.
Mr. Yates, we always appreciate you. You have a great trip home, and we look forward to seeing you, and we're following you on social media. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Take good care.
You too. Our great friend Steve Yates joining us. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Our top two stories, obviously, still reeling over what happened with North Korea, still reeling on what happened with Michael Cohen, and, of course, here is our watchdog segment concerning those crazy, wacky network folks and the very reason why conservative media exists is because the major networks just simply lie to us, right? 482 minutes on Michael Cohen, making up a bunch of things about the president, calling him names, 11 minutes on North Korea.
Like a witness for the prosecution, the president's former fixer and lawyer said he and Mr. Trump committed crimes together.
Well, and then, Paula, here's the question about those investigations. Then, with the revelations today, where do the investigations go next?
Well, Cohen gave lawmakers a roadmap of exactly where to go next. He gave them the names of specific people who would have knowledge of some of this alleged criminal conduct. He also brought with him documents and suggested where to get more. And most importantly, he has alleged the president underestimated his net worth so as not to pay his fair share of taxes, giving Democrats a way to pursue the president's elusive tax returns.
Through it all, Republicans trying to discredit Cohen, attacking his character and credibility.
Michael Cohen, fraudster, a cheat, convicted felon, and in 2 months a federal inmate.
The narcissist, a bully, who cannot tell the truth whether it's about the president or about his own personal life.
This liar, liar, pants on fire.
They accused him of trying to cash in on his infamy, calling him a man scorned when the president didn't bring him to Washington.
You said all these bad things about the president there in that last 30 minutes, and yet you worked for him for 10 years? Mr. Cohen, how long did you work in the White House?
I never worked in the White House.
And that's the point, isn't it, Mr. Cohen?
No, sir.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not, sir.
You wanted to work in the White House.
No, sir.
You didn't get brought to the dance.
There we have it, Jim Jordan. And again, we'll continue to take your phone calls on this. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Now, notice how the media says it's a roadmap to impeachment. What did Michael Cohen say? He said some things about a porn star, very troubling. Michael Cohen attacked the president personally, very disturbing. But there was no value to what Michael Cohen said.
I am ashamed because I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
So if you had the means of Mikey, and you were working for a, quote, racist con man and a cheat, why did you continue to do it? Why were you left out of the White House? So now you can get your payback. You know, whatever happened to G. Gordon Liddy, who just, look, I did the crime, I'll do the time. How many of us have taught our children and grandchildren the lesson that you have to own up to when you did something wrong and not blame others? Right? 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
But as Cohen himself pointed out, Republicans did not spend much time defending the president's actions.
The testimony was
historian Michael Beschloss says it's unprecedented for someone once so loyal to sit in that chair.
It's awfully hard to find the spectacle of a confidant of the president who flips on him, then goes before Congress and says he's a racist, a cheat, and a con man.
Reminders today of another historic hearing.
John Dean was back on the witness stand today.
In 1973, former Nixon White House legal counsel John Dean testified for days before the Senate Watergate Committee.
I began by telling the president that there was a cancer growing on the presidency.
It's not a perfect parallel. Dean was on the inside at the White House and revealed Nixon's personal involvement in a cover-up.
John Dean's testimony was the moment where Richard Nixon went from being a president with a problem to being a president who might very well be driven out of office. We don't yet know if Michael Cohen's testimony is going to have the same effect.
Republicans today slammed Cohen.
There we have it. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. They can't get the president with the Russian collusion. They can't get the president with anything else. And by the way, I'd love to have this in-depth team coverage on the Clinton emails, right? Wouldn't you? I'd love to have the in-depth team coverage on the Clinton emails, smashing them with a hammer, the bleach bit, and everything else. Where's the accountability there? One more clip, and then we'll take your calls.
Michael Cohen can't be trusted. The Democrats' first announced witness of this Congress is a guy who is going to prison, will be a federal inmate in 2 months for lying to Congress.
So it comes down to this. I don't find him believable. But if you're a lib, if you're someone on the fence, well, look at this. Let's talk next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And a few reminders, the KIDO Talk Radio newsletter. Free subscription, get it twice a week. No spam, just good stories that we put on our website. I know you don't get a chance to hit the website all the time, but you can go to KIDOTalkRadio.com, get the best of the week, the beginning of the week and the end of the week. And, of course, our KIDOTalkRadio.com app, which continues to grow, and people across the world and around the country, we're having a good time there. Now, yesterday during the hearing, Mark Meadows decided to bring up a black female government employee, basically saying, look, this young lady, her daddy was born in Birmingham, Alabama. She's not a racist. Donald Trump is not a racist. Somehow, the rest of the country needs to figure out what we do here in Idaho, which is solve a cure for this race stuff. And, maybe this is an ageism thing with me, but this identity politics, and I'm a such and such American. I have been against the hyphenated American thing since, I've been doing this for 24 years. Across the country, around the world. The idea that being an American is not enough. You have to say, well, I'm a such and such American. I do not understand that. And this whole thing about race. Oh, you're a racist. You can be a criminal, but if you're a racist, it's even worse. Why does the media always try and direct us to the negative about our great country?
And there was another pretty shocking thing that came up again and again in today's hearing, okay? Did you see this? Republican Congressman Mark Meadows, he brought a special guest, Lynn Patton, who's a Trump administration official, as if she were a live prop, trotting her out in an attempt to prove that this president couldn't possibly be a racist.
I asked Lynn to come today in her personal capacity to actually shed some light. How long have you known Ms. Patton?
I'm responsible for Lynn Patton joining the Trump Organization and the job that she currently holds.
Well, I'm glad you acknowledge that, because you made some very demeaning comments about the president that Ms. Patton doesn't agree with. In fact, it has to do with your claim of racism. She says that as a daughter of a man born in Birmingham, Alabama, that there is no way that she would work for an individual who was racist. How do you reconcile the two of those, Mr.
As neither should I, as the son of a Holocaust survivor.
It's like, I have a black friend, prop. A black employee, prop.
There we have it, Don Lemon from CNN giving his objective analysis. The president can't seem to win. And then here we have somebody who was born in Birmingham, Alabama, someone whose dad was a Holocaust survivor. Folks, this is the grand delusion designed to what? Derail America going forward. Can you imagine if we had higher fuel costs? Think about how bad it was under President Obama. Think of how horrific it was, the price of gasoline in our beloved gem state. Just one example. Think about this. And for people that have moved in, I'm sure it was like this where you were, being unemployed in 2008, 2009. The bread store wasn't even hiring. Now jobs are aplenty, right? Can you imagine with the media, and the media was covering for former President Obama. Here, not so much. And I love this idea. Who do you believe? Does anybody believe Michael Cohen? Of course not. Let's go to Pro-Life, who joins us with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yeah, President Trump has been far too wimpy. he needs to invite impeachment. He should have fired all the federal attorneys, got rid of the Mueller group, everything really early on, and invited impeachment. And for a good reason, like shutting down the border totally, like saving babies from getting murdered. And but anyway, that's what he should have done, and he needs to get tough right now and invite impeachment because it's going to happen, and he needs to have it on his terms for a good reason, like securing the border or stopping babies from getting murdered or some kind of a sexual issue in the military. He does not need to let them run his reputation down like this in the media, and he's being stupid about it, and so that's my position right there. What do you think about that?
Well, you're a man of faith.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on the smear job yesterday of President Trump?
Well, it was a smear job. Michael Cohen has no credibility whatsoever, and he was lying right there. There's no evidence whatsoever that Trump is a racist, that he's, well, I don't know. You know, he operated casinos. That's kind of a con thing, but, I mean, it's legal. I mean, but it's not an honorable occupation. But we have a flawed president, but that doesn't mean that you just get to throw every kind of a lie at him like Mr. Cohen was doing. It's just pretty sick.
It's a smear job.
Yeah.
Pro-life.
And if somebody loved the United States, they would not try to damage the whole country through, causing a president to just be sick like this.
Through the smear job. Thank you, Pro-life.
Yep. All right.
More coming up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning,
Good
Maggie.
morning, Kevin.
And finally, we get to hear from you. Let's go to Terry in Nampa with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you this fine wet morning?
Not bad. Not bad. I like the rain, so I'm good. Better than the snow.
Yeah, you're a gloomy kind of guy anyway, so you like the rain and fog and all that stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, I am a Republican. I am a Republican that thinks that America made a very bad choice when they elected Trump as president. In fact, I don't even like to call him president. I listened. I didn't have work yesterday, so luckily I was able to listen to the majority of the testimony. I did not hear all of the, after the recess, I didn't hear all the last part of it. So I'm still, whatever was said then is still new to me. But what I did hear, I do believe in. And Trump is right there. He said that he knew of no collusion efforts. So that was a bonus for Trump there. But a lot of the other stuff, I do believe. Do I believe there are impeachable offenses? No, not really. But I do believe it is going to hamper Trump, and something's going to happen to where they may even make it to where Trump can't run for re-election or something. I don't know. But I really believe Cohen on majority of what he said there.
What purpose did it serve, my friend? And hopefully we'll see you at Miller's Mission. I know sometimes you stop out and say hi. So what purpose does it serve to air this dirty laundry?
I don't know. Just get it out there, I guess. But, I think, as far as the racist part, when he started and he did his first monologue, his opening statement, talked about Trump being racist and all this stuff. I think a lot of people knew that prior, so I don't think any of that was, new knowledge. Everybody knows that he cheated on his taxes, so that was not new. Everybody knew he paid off the porn star. That's not new, Trump may, get something done to him about that, but I believe Cohen But like I said, I do not believe that anything he said, would be an impeachable offense towards Trump.
Well, Terry, I've got to run, but I always appreciate your friendship, and the beauty of you and me is we may not always agree, but I love hearing what you have to say.
All right. Yeah, I love your show, and good luck on the mission. And, I'll see you down there.
Thank you, sir. Bye, Terry. Before we get to Pete Mountain Home, Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us live from Washington, D.C. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Well, not a lot going on in Washington. I don't know what we're going to talk about. I'm struggling for content today.
Just another dull day.
Indeed,
Just another
sir.
dull day.
So your friend, Congressman Jordan, was making, I don't want to say quite a scene, but making a really valid defense of the president yesterday. You know Jim Jordan very well. You welcomed him here to Idaho. He made some appearances for you. Your thoughts on Congressman Jordan and the Michael Cohen testimony yesterday?
The purpose of that oversight committee, or at least the minority component of it, really is to try to get to the truth. And Kevin, I was, full disclosure, I was nowhere near those committee hearings. There is a lot of other things going on at the same time, and I had my own responsibilities that I was responsible for. I did touch base with actually Congressman Meadows, but I have not talked to Congressman Jordan about it. I've probably been exposed to about the same thing that you have in terms of just what the media exposure has been. Let me just say this. The chairman of that oversight committee, in my opinion, was trying to facilitate a circus show and deliberately brought in someone who has confessed to lying to Congress already as supposedly a credible witness. And, why would, if you have an individual who has already admitted that they've lied to Congress, what really would be the positive purpose of it? And so, in my opinion, this was set up by the chair, by the majority, to make it look, like a big spectacle, and it did. And so the work that Congressman Jordan, Meadows, others did was probably much more telling in terms of truthfulness than anything else.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us live from Washington, D.C. here on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. So let's talk about what you've been up to. How goes it with Team Fulcher in D.C.?
We're doing okay. It's about what we anticipated it to be. There's a fair amount of chaos. Yesterday was kind of an exciting one in the House. There was a vote, an actual passage on a registration background check bill. But what really didn't make the press was an amendment that the minority party, the Republican Party, made, that the Democrats actually splintered over and wound up supporting. And it was a small win for the Republicans, even though that bill passed, which I didn't support, the Republicans didn't support. I think it's going to be killed eventually. But there was actually an amendment inserted on the House floor, which is not all that common, and the Democrats splintered, and it actually passed. The amendment passed.
Of course, other big issues of concern have to do with the national emergency. You have people fighting about that. You have other folks wondering when can Congress get its act together, and that's what you're there to do, to get them together.
Well, it's certainly something that we're working on, and to be honest, there is some progress on that front, and I think we saw just a little bit of it today. There was a movement on behalf of some of those across the aisle to look at the world a little bit more like we do. But national emergency is going to be sucking the oxygen out of the room for a while. Of course, it's being challenged by several states. If I could just share my thought on that specific situation, Kevin, in regard to a national emergency, there is no question that legally a president has the ability to do that. They don't have the ability to appropriate funds, but they can reshuffle those funds. They can't appropriate one dime, but they can take the money that has been appropriated by Congress and move it around a little bit in regard to that emergency. So the legal precedent is out there. I think it's been done 59 times by every president since the 70s, including the current one. The question then becomes, does the situation on our southern border truly consist of a national emergency? So you take those two issues separate, and it's a two-stage decision process. In my opinion, with what I have been exposed to, yes, the situation on our southern border is an emergency, and so I believe in this particular case, the president is acting correctly.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So you're back and forth. It seems like you're back here working more than you are in D.C., and people in Idaho love that, sir. For you, what was it like last week at the Ada County Lincoln Day Association? I saw you there. You were talking to a lot of folks, a lot of constituents, a lot of your former colleagues. Your thoughts on, kind of like old home day, and then you had a chance to address the legislature, as we discussed last week, as well as go on Idaho Public Television and do the media tour.
It makes you appreciate Idaho, I think, that much more, and also points out the circumstances that we're in. We do have a struggle in governing at the federal level, but as I had mentioned to some of my colleagues, Kevin, it's supposed to be a struggle. I mean, if you want to put politics and if you want to put governance in its most simple form, it is the ongoing struggle for influence. It's ongoing, and it's a struggle, and it was meant to be that way. And so some of the same things that frustrate us, like, having some serious discussions about the national debt and some serious discussions about immigration reform, healthcare reform, some of the same the same circumstances that block those types of things also block crazy things. Like, eliminating fossil fuels over the next 10 years, or air travel, or some of those types of things just quite frankly are not reasonable, not doable without decimating an economy. And so this was designed to be a frustrating experience, and it is. But, it still serves a very legitimate purpose, and it makes going back and forth makes me appreciate Idaho and what we have all that much more.
Final question, Congressman Fulcher, your thoughts on the president in Vietnam speaking with Kim Jong-un and what it means for Congress?
Well, what's happening there is little by little a very dangerous part of the world is becoming a little bit less dangerous. And if we can take a positive step, in this case, if the president can take a positive step and reach out and try to address a problem before it happens, or take an existing problem and try to improve it a little bit with some personal diplomacy, then that's good for everybody. And that's good as a global citizen on that front, because we're easing tensions around the world when that type of stuff happens. America is truly in a leadership position. The rest of the planet looks toward us. That might be scary in some ways because they see some of the chaotic things going on in Washington, D.C. and whatnot, but we're still much more stable, and we have a rule of law that most of the world just doesn't have. And so I think it's a good thing. I think the president is doing a good job with that diplomacy. And most of Congress recognizes that. They may not want to give him credit outwardly, but I think most of us recognize that here.
Congressman Fulcher, we sure appreciate having you on. Anything else you'd like to share with us?
I just appreciate the opportunity to communicate to all of you, for your listening audience. Part of what we want to do here is to be eyes, ears, and voice for you all, and you're speaking to the people that I directly represent. And so don't hesitate to reach out, connect with us, excuse me, and we'll do our best to try to be your eyes, ears, and voice in Washington.
Thank you, sir, and safe travels, and we look forward to seeing you back home.
Thank you, Kevin. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Our great friend, Congressman Fulcher, joining us. Let's go to Pete from Mountain Home with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning, Kevin. I have a thought on Kamala Harris and Alexandria Nutcase Cortez's proposal for reparations for slavery. And you look at history, and before the Civil War and during the Civil War, the slave owners and the people who were fighting to keep slavery were the Democrats. After the Civil War, it was the Democrats who passed the Jim Crow laws that were guilty of the lynchings in the South, George Wallace, the whole segregationist movement, and it was the Democrats in '64 in Congress that voted against the Civil Rights Act. So my proposal for reparations, since the Democrats are the ones that are actually guilty of all that, and they're the ones that want us to feel guilty, I propose that anyone who is a current Democrat in Congress, anyone who ever registered to vote as a Democrat in the last 10 years, be required to pay reparations to people who are descended from slaves. And I think an appropriate level would be 70% of everything they own. Does that sound fair?
I think that's an answer for the privilege argument, yes.
You know, they want reparations for those who are guilty of slavery, and that's the Democrats. That's not Republicans. Republicans, Abraham Lincoln and the North, they fought that. It was the Republicans in Congress that passed the Civil Rights Act. So let's have the Democrats pony up. They think reparations are a good idea. I think let's start with, at the least, let's start with all the Democrats in Congress. 70% of everything they own goes into a kitty for reparations.
Pete, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Pete listening from Mountain Home. Jim in Middleton with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Kevin. I've got something else to bring up, but Pete just nailed it. I was going to bring that up. I swear to Buddha, Kevin. I was going to bring that exact same thing up. But anyway, Pete, great point. Anyway, Kevin, in regards to the hearing and the investigation, the whole 9 yards, this is the biggest crime that I have ever seen perpetrated against our country, a citizen. 2 years, a hired gun going after somebody for something that everyone knew, even the media and the Democratic Party knew was not true. They knew this, but they fueled it and funded this for 2 years. And the fact that the Republicans and many in law enforcement, Kevin, did nothing about this kangaroo bureaucracy and boondoggle and not investigating those who started it, perpetrated it, financed it, and what have you, is a crime. And it is a threat to our republic. And every person that fights for freedom. And I have no love, as you know, for the Republican Party, because they go along, they weasel along, they make excuses. Listen to how they talk. They always talk about how, well, it's not easy to get things passed, and it's not easy to do this, and you've got to go through these channels. You know, the Democrats don't. They break the law right in front of a Republican, and they look the other way.
And
I don't want to. Anyway, go ahead.
And they do nothing. Jim, I got to run, but thank you.
You bet. Bye.
Bye-bye. Jim in Middleton. More of your calls next.
The Democrats don't care. They don't care. They just want to use you, Mr. Cohen. You're their patsy today. They got to find somebody, somewhere, to say something so they can try to remove the president from office.
You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Quickly to Dave in Meridian before we get to traffic. Good morning, Dave.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Great. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, quickly, while not to downplay the national stage here, in Idaho, the legislature is voting on the red flag law, the no due process confiscation of guns. It already passed the Senate, including a lot of Republicans. Republicans are co-sponsoring this. My own representatives are sponsoring this in Meridian, and it's now going to the House. So I think, I don't have the number because I'm driving, but I believe it's SJR 1101 or 101, also known as Marsy's Law, which was originated in California and has been ruled unconstitutional since then. Even the ACLU is against it. So we need to get the word out, Kevin, and get this thing stopped. I'm not downplaying the need for safety for for people in domestic violence situations, which is that's the fear part of this that everybody's talking about in the legislature. But this has no due process at all. It erodes the Constitution and takes away our Second Amendment rights without any hearing, without any evidence or anything.
David, thank you. We will continue to cover Marsy's Law. We have been, but we'll up our ante because it's so important. Good morning, Dave.